Gifts or inheritances can be considered marital property depending on how they're used and if they're commingled. This is one of those issues that actually there's a good argument to say it's not marital property. This gift from my parents was just to me, where this inheritance just came to me, and it wasn't supposed to be subject to equitable distribution in the event of a divorce. This is an issue that if the money or the gift is used by both parties or for a joint venture in the marriage or for the children, it's going to be very hard to argue that it's not actually a marital asset. But if it is kept completely separate from the other spouse, not saying the other spouse doesn't need to know about it, but completely separate from their use and completely separate from the marriage, there could be a good argument that it's not subject to equitable distribution and that it just belongs to the spouse that inherited it. Also, generally speaking, a gift from one spouse to the other is not subject to equitable distribution either, because it was a gift. Gifts are different and they're treated differently than regular assets acquired during the course of the marriage. Business assets are subject to equitable distribution, generally speaking, just like any other asset in the marriage. See, if the parties own a business, even if one's the one that's running it and the other one has nothing to do with it, the business itself has value. And so this is an issue that in these types of family law cases, we want to make sure that we're going through this with a fine-tooth comb to determine what the actual assets are and what belongs to the business itself to keep it running and what's profit. Profit from a business that otherwise could be taken home, there's an argument to be made that that's subject to equitable distribution. Generally speaking, the value of a business is determined based on the type of business we're talking about. So if it's a business that has lots of equipment that's worth a lot of money, sometimes the value of the business on paper can be the liquidation value. What would it be if we sold everything that we have and the ultimate equity that's brought in from that? Another way to value a business would be a multiple of the net profit of that business. And net profit would be after everybody's paid, all shareholders that aren't part of the marriage are paid out and what have you. And so there's multiple ways to value a business depending on what type of business it is. And frankly, in a divorce case, there's multiple ways to value it fairly, but that may actually be better for one side over the other, depending on what goals we're trying to accomplish. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to liquidate a business just because there's a divorce, but very often we do need to come up with a value of what that business is worth to determine what equitable distribution looks like. Cryptocurrency, like any other asset, is subject to equitable distribution in Florida. Basically, it's like having a brokerage account saying you've got a bunch of mutual funds or stocks in there that were acquired during the course of a marriage. Cryptocurrency has value, and if it was acquired during the course of a marriage, generally speaking, it's subject to equitable distribution. Of course, the thing about crypto is it's volatile. So the value of it today, when we might be putting together the equitable distribution table, might be different than it is tomorrow. And so it's really important to understand what your goals and your strategies are for the remainder of your life after this divorce and how we're determining how to distribute something like crypto. When it comes to equitable distribution and stock options or employee benefits, courts are going to look at this in a way to determine, okay, what is the future benefit of this stock option? And also, what is it worth now? Depending on which side of the divorce case that you're on, whether you're the person with the stock option or the person that's trying to get it, there will be arguments on both sides about how to value that. This is a gray area, frankly, because a stock option might be worth $10 today, but if it vests, it might be worth $100,000 in 5 years. Because we don't know whether that option is actually going to vest or what the benefit's going to look like in the future, there's a good argument to say we actually should value it based on its value right now. But again, these are complicated questions that need a legal expert to look at to determine what's best for your situation.